Greetings, everybody, and welcome to the Called2B Podcast, where we seek to empower everyday believers to discover and live out their authentic calling in Christ. I'm Reverend Dr. Travis Guzzi. I'm a pastor as well as an ICF-certified life and executive coach and a Gallup strengths coach. And we want to welcome you to this once-a-month conversation that we have called Everyday Believers, where we have conversations with everyday believers doing extraordinary things in the kingdom. And I have a special guest here in the studio. I want to welcome Tim Medlin. Is that correct, Tim Medlin, right?
That's correct. You got it.
All right, good. And you are with PorchLight Music in Nashville, Tennessee.
Yes, I am.
Yeah. Wonderful. Well, good to have you in the studio here. And we're just going to be talking about how you live out your faith in everyday life, in what you do in the music industry in Nashville. But before we begin, I would just love to hear a little bit about your background and your faith journey that's kind of brought you to this point today.
Yeah, Travis. Well, I've always been, since I was young, somebody that believed in prayer and God. My grandmother, I grew up in a big family. My grandmother would go to church. She'd take me with her. Maybe didn't know what was going on all
Always
the time.
got to praise God for grandmas, right?
Praise God, because my parents, not so much, but my grandmother took me.
Right.
I not necessarily knew probably that when I was praying at night what I was doing. I just knew I was talking to God, and I would ask for things that I would see going on in my life. And some of those things when I was young were acting. When I was young, I ended up doing some acting, and I was probably 5 or 6 when I did my first commercial. And I remember praying at night, God, that would be so cool because my neighbor was doing it, and then I was doing it. And later on in life, it was football. It was, I want to play.
What position did you play?
I was a wide receiver, punt returner, kick returner.
Okay.
And not a big guy, so that's why I prayed more. I prayed.
God, please don't let me get hurt, right?
Exactly. And, when you play with the big boys all the time, I realized that's actually what transitioned me out of acting was my love for football. And so I went to the Redskins game, saw Art Monk play, and I was done. And that was it. I wanted to be a football player, like a lot of kids dream. And so, I was able to do that for a long time. But, I'd pray, God, first you're praying just to get to play, just to be on the team. Then you're praying, once you're playing, you're starting, hey, don't let me drop balls, let me score touchdowns. And then it's like, God, I sure would like to be, kind of ranked at the end of this thing. And then you're going up the rankings, and then can I please play college? I really love to play football in college, So then, and then next thing he kept answering, and so, I knew, even though I wasn't in church all the time like I should be, I knew that my relationship with God was really sound.
Right.
Went through the fire academy at 16. School was not my really thing. I was an athlete. I wasn't very good in school.
I get that because I think my grade point average was about like 2.8. I got a 1.6 my first year of college. I was doing the scholar athlete thing.
Yeah.
Definitely focused on the athlete, not so much on the scholar.
Yeah, then you know how that goes. And going through that, but when I went through the fire academy, I prayed like, hey, I just wanted to pass because my dad was a fireman. I had all these people around me. And, I didn't even have an anatomy class yet and ended up as an EMT. Firefighter. So I thought that was going to be my career.
Right.
But through prayer, I got through that, got the football opportunity. And, that took me, I blew my knee out like you always hear the stories. Wow. Yeah. So I've had several knee surgeries. But my love of music and the arts through this has always been very big in my life. My family, my mom and my, Dad took me a ton of concerts growing up. I mean, country to the 60s, to the oldies. I saw The Lion Sleeps Tonight, The Tokens. I mean, I'm Four Tops, Ricky Nelson. I saw all these guys growing up.
Right.
Michael Jackson, when they was on that tour, with the Jackson 5, we always went to shows. So my career took me out west and took me into the hotel business. And once again, I was an EMT at this resort called the Phoenician in Scottsdale. I'm sure a lot of people, especially out in the LA area, if they're watching, know the Phoenician because it's a big destination. And we, I started as an EMT there, and just trying to figure out what my next step in life was going to be. And I'll never forget, I ran a call, and this guy comes down, and he's got this suit on, and he looked so cool when he came down, just took control. He was the hotel manager, and I knew right then and there, I want that job.
Okay.
And so once again, praying, it just doesn't happen. 21 years old, it just doesn't happen unless you've got a little, favor with God, because it just doesn't happen. And next thing you know, a year later, I'm the hotel manager, assistant hotel manager day to day. But I'm the day-to-day guy that handles a lot of the issues with guests.
Yeah, it sounds like you're a very focused person. Whatever you put your focus on, you seem to be working towards that.
Well, I think a little bit of it, I am very focused when I make the decision to go, but I also am one of these guys that carry chips on my shoulder. So football, I want to be an NFL player. We all want to be a pro, right?
Yep.
When you're playing, that's all you think about. And then you think about all the things that come along with being a pro. And then when that's taken away and you're like, man, I will say, I had questions for God when my knee surgeries happened. There was some questions.
Yeah.
It was so easy for me to play the game, and it was a game I loved so much, that school wasn't very easy for me. So playing football was, when that's your thing, and that's taken away, it messed with me a little bit.
Yeah.
But got out there and carried a chip that when I put my mind on something, I say I want something, then I'm going to probably focus down and do what it takes, So next thing you know, I'm dealing with celebrities out there on a daily basis. I mean, anybody you can think of, from George Clooney to Michael Jordan to Oprah Winfrey.
So this is a pretty nice resort in Scottsdale, right?
Five-star, 5-diamond, yeah. When I was out there, we were one of the top 25 hotels in North America for sure, but at one point number one. So it was, you were usually if you were there, you were probably a celebrity, or you were somebody that did very well in business. And the Bill Gates of the world were out there at one point. You really met everybody there.
Yeah.
And so it was a neat place.
So Tim, you're working as a manager now at this resort.
Yeah.
How do you go from that in Scottsdale to the music industry in Nashville? What's that journey look like for you?
So what I did learn from the Phoenician, and from really when I was young, I had really good people in my life that really made me understood networking and relationships. And so a bunch of us were recruited from the Phoenician to go to Merv Griffin. You probably remember Merv Griffin, Wheel of Fortune, Jeopardy, back in the day. Had the he had a couple hotels out west, but he also had the Beverly Hills Hilton, out where they did the awards. So I went to work for him. Crazy enough, a couple country music singers come in that I knew, and I took very good care of these guys. And next thing you know, I built relationships with them. A couple years down the road, randomly, I'm in North Carolina, and I run into some of these guys playing a club down there on the road, and I took very good care of them when I was at the hotel. I took very good care of these guys when they were there, and next thing you know, it was crazy. So I was asked to come down and hang in Nashville. Now, I just met my wife, Sherry, and we had met, so I got probably to go one step back. I moved back to Maryland for about a year and a half.
Okay.
From out west. And it was in this time when I was in North Carolina that I went down and ran into these folks. And so me and my my girlfriend, at the time, we go down to Nashville to hang with these guys. And this one country singer just happened to really like me, like my story, knew how to take care of people from the hotel. And and they said, why don't you come on tour with us as a tour manager?
Oh, wow.
And it was that simple. And we were open for Blake Shelton a lot, and the artist was named Damon Smith. He was kind of an up and comer, but had a lot of good things going on. And we ended up going on a road. We were out there and opened for Damon, and we opened for Blake, and just a lot of folks, and it was awesome. It was awesome.
So how long did you do that, kind of being that road manager for artists? Yeah,
so I did that part for almost 2 years, probably about just almost 2 years. I would go out on the weekends with different artists. Sometimes that led me to running some sound, doing some things. Once I got there, now at this point in my career, from the hotels to that age where I'm in Nashville, I'm probably pushing 26.
Okay.
So I'm trying to figure out what my next step in the music business is, because it's, if you want to get management, which is something I really wanted to do, I felt like I was getting a little late for that, because a lot of folks, you come out of college and you get into one of these internship programs, or you get into one of these programs for management, but they'll start you at the very bottom in the mailroom and you work your way up.
Right.
Which I was never, ever afraid of. But when you get a little older, you're just not sure where you're going to end up, where you end up going. So I tried a couple things. So I would go on the road and do, just go out as a tour manager or road manager on the weekends, or I would actually at one point started a small booking agency, thinking, well, maybe I can be in the booking business. And then my very first act no-showed, and I said, nope, not ready for that. On a Friday night, you get the call from the club, hey, where's your band?
Right.
Yeah, that wasn't cool. So got out of that real quick. And then I just did a couple different things in business, more on the entrepreneur side, until I got the publishing company going, which, funny enough, so my best friend out there played for, at the time, he wasn't nearly as big, for a country act called John Pardee, a country singer. He was a lead guitar player, and he had been in a publishing deal that was okay. He was kind of coming off of it. And all my friends were in the music business. They're all some of the big hit songwriters at this point. We're probably fast forwarding a few more years. So, you built these relationships with songwriters when you're back in town. And, I knew that, I knew a bunch of them, but I didn't know a lot about publishing. And for those that want to know publishing, publishing is the side of the business where you have the writers that write the music. So we're talking, guys that wrote Friends of Low Places I'm sitting with, and guys that you're just hearing about how these stories for, his songwriters, that Earl Bud Lee, who wrote Friends of Low Places and became a mentor for me, and you're hearing these stories of his first 30 years, and it was amazing. It was an amazing time. And so when Terry Lee Palmer, who currently is, still writes with us and is one of the partners in PorchLight, when he had a bad publishing deal, which we call when typically it's not exactly what you hope to get, meaning, if you get a cut, you don't make any money. That's not a good deal.
Yeah.
So
hard to make a living that way.
Hard to make a living that way, right? So we call that a bad publishing deal. I didn't say any names, but so he came out and I said, let's go ahead, let's start this thing. And so the cool thing was, it was right at the time that John was starting to blow up in country music. And so Terry's out with all of these guys that are coming up, like Brother Osborne out of Maryland. I mean, this Brother Osborne was opening for John, and then they went on and just went up the charts, and which was good for Terry as a writer, because when you're on tour as a writer, if you can meet other writers that are already artists, and get in those camps to write, it's huge. And so he was out there doing that, and which led us to really start PorchLight Music. It was to really say, okay, this can't be just a hobby. This has got to be right. And so we did. I mean, the first 6 months were just kind of going under. He had a small publishing name, and it was called Love Knuckle, like, give me some Love Knuckle, man, like his bass player when he would go up, on stage kind of thing.
Yeah.
One of those kind of deals. And then, then when we took it serious and built it, I used to sit on the porch with my uncle and listen to all the oldies growing up. And I thought, and somebody started, I said Porch, and somebody said Light, and then PorchLight Music.
There you go.
And then I think we all got those stories, right? Because if you love music, you got those songs that sit around and remember being with your family somewhere, someplace. And so I wanted the name to mean something.
Yeah. So what is the mission and vision of PorchLight?
So the vision is really, obviously, we've got to get songs on the radio, right? Because that's how we continue. But we want to do that, doing the things the right way for my writers, for my team. We're a family. We built a family. So if they're, it's important for us to help the music community and be impactful any way we can. And so, it starts with our writers, because that's our family. We build that, but you can't help everyone. We can't sign everybody, and this is a crazy age with streaming services, and you're not.
The industry's changed a lot.
It's changed a ton, So it's tougher now for an artist to make a living as a writer, especially because without CD sales or the mechanical recordings, it's hard, because you used to be able to get a cut and make a living on a record, right, or an album, or a CD. If you just could get on that album enough times a year, you could make a living. The single was awesome, then you're really doing it, right?
Right.
But now with the ability just to go in and pick and choose what you want, that's kind of, so we have to work harder for our writers. We really got to work harder. We have to make sure that they're writing with other publishing companies, other writers. So that's one of the things we do. And so that's our mission is really to create music that people remember. I mean, if I had a mission statement, and I got to be very careful how I say this, but one of my writers, Clint Daniels, we talked about this. He said, I said, you want to live the songs we write, like we want to live the songs we write. Now, obviously, there's some songs you don't want to live that you're writing out there, right?
More descriptive rather than prescriptive in
that's
life.
That's 100% right. But where I'm going with it more is that there's a lot of really great country songs. Let me take that back. By the way, I love all music, not just country. I mean, I just saw New Edition in Vegas. They were unbelievable. Like I love, you listen to a song like "Can You Stand the Rain," or you listen to some of this amazing writing, right? And then. In country too, you go back and you look at there's a lot, it's just the storytelling, right? It goes back to the storytelling and what we can relate to.
Well, that's the thing I've always appreciated about country music. I'm not the biggest country music fan, I'll just be honest.
No, it's okay.
But there is something I do appreciate about it. It has a lot of heart and it's a lot of storytelling.
That's right. That's right. And that is and a lot of different, a lot of different artists will have those songs, and then you'll hear what you hear on the radio. That's some of it you're going to like, some of it you're not going to like. But the storytelling to me has always been, I want it to hit me. I love when a song you can't get out of your head, right? Like so we want to put quality out, versus quantity. That's that we talk about that with our writers. That and I've got hardworking writers. I've got Ryan Garrett, who's one of my writers. That guy will write 2-3 songs a day if you let him. And then I've got what we call in the industry like a hit songwriter. So I've got 3 hit songwriters, and they write, they're writing with other hit songwriters. So it's a little bit different for them, and and then we've got guys that I've got William Michael Morgan, who was out with Alan Jackson. He's got an artist career going. He's amazing. He's had number 1 at 2019. In 2019, I think he had number 1, maybe 17 if I get my dates wrong, but he had number 1 with "I Met a Girl" in country radio. So, but those songs that I feel like what we've done and built this family at PorchLight is also these songs that we write. And these are songs you're going to remember. You know what I mean? Like songs that touch you, that you feel. That at least that's what I hope.
Yeah.
And be impactful in the business and help. One of the big things, if you don't mind me bringing up Anthony Smith, he's my vice president. He's one of the hardest working guys out there. He's a writer. He's written country songs. He has a Chris Young cut right now on the Famous Friends record called "Break Like You Do." But he goes up to Washington, D.C. and lobbies. He lobbies for the writers to make more money on the streaming side, with the Music Modernization Act. And he goes with the Independent Publishers Association. They send people out to go out there and lobby. And if they can help go into Congress to get writers a little more money, a little, because we're talking tens of cents and things like that, right? It doesn't impact just my company. It impacts every writer, every artist, So we want to be those guys. We want to be the guys that PorchLight Music. We want guys to remember being impactful.
Yeah. So it sounds like your company is facilitating the creating of songs, people using their talents to do that, connecting with artists, but also being an advocate for artists, songwriters, the industry as well.
Absolutely, 100%. A few years ago, I was, I was at a bar. It was 11. Come on, it's Nashville.
We're Lutheran.
Right? We're Lutheran, right? Nashville, we have, Lutheran beer out there too. So, it's not, they know what they're doing out there a little bit. But we were down in, so I'm at a bar, and it's 11 o'clock at night. And I'd heard there was this really good round. And this happens, every once in a while. And I happened to be down the road, and I was getting ready to call it a night. And I walked in there, and I'm looking around the room, and I couldn't help but see, these young kids up there. And, I'm going on 44, so when I see a 19, 20, 21-year-old, up there playing music, I couldn't help but think, man, it's 11 o'clock at night. And I'm looking around the room, and and that's one of the things. When you come to Nashville, you feel like you have to do certain things and play all the time to get out. But I just couldn't help to think, man, it would be great to have a show that goes on really early. Yeah. So me and Terry Lee Palmer and one of my writers, Dan Hudson, started PorchLight Pickers, which is a show we do, started on Tuesday nights, and it started at 6 o'clock in the evening. So I would call up all my producer friends. I would call up anybody in radio. I'd call up all my publishing friends. And the first round would be just, kind of up-and-coming writers, young writers that could use a break or that could just, could watch that second round full of hit writers and learn something. Or maybe network, maybe get a write with them, just depending on, and more importantly, just be seen, seen and be remembered, right? Yeah. Be seen and remembered, because you know what happens when you stay out 11 o'clock and you have a beer.
Kind of forget. Who did I meet last night?
Yeah. Did I give how many cards did I give out last night? What? No, but it's so that's what we did. So we started it, and man, the support I'm telling you, the support from the industry was unbelievable. I mean, just producers that came out and just showed up, and we're always there. We did every Tuesday. So we first thought, man, can we keep this thing going every Tuesday? And then and then when COVID hit, it hurt the bar, obviously hurt the business, So when things started coming back, they asked us, could we do it Tuesdays and Thursdays, to give, once we were back to where we could be there till 10 o'clock at night. And so we did. We started Tuesday and Thursdays. So, it's every week, Tuesdays and Thursdays, and it's all about helping impact, creating a networking environment, being impactful in the music business, and just trying to help anybody we can.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. So, Tim, you're obviously a Christian, a person of faith. How do you see your faith being lived out in this calling of PorchLight music, of the music scene in Nashville, and working with all these people in the industry?
It's kind of like your team is your family. And so, these young writers come to town. We give them a shot. We mentor them. We help, help bring them up and help them achieve their dreams. That we help them, which is creating music. And, creating music to me is I believe music is one of the last true medicines out here that we have, right? I mean, it is, you have a song for everything. I know you have a song. I can just tell. You've got a song for, to get you pumped up for your podcast, probably. You got a song for, Fridays when you're done work,
Well, even life. I mean, life, I think back, and it seems like songs. I mean, I remember Tears for Fears. I remember them in the weight room in Idaho Falls, Idaho, getting ready for practice. I mean, there's these moments of life that are defined by songs.
Right. Oh, yeah. We have. I'll give you one.
It's like the soundtrack of life.
Right. It is. And, and knowing that we can help people, help that music gets to somebody else like us, and it helps us. I mean, I remember, and I was just telling my daughter this the other day, and I downloaded a song, but I remember being in that in-between phase, because we all go through those phases of we're kind of like, which direction do we go? And I remember Michael W. Smith. I went this direction on you with My Place in This World, right? Do you remember that? Yep. And I would listen to that over and over and over again. And just think, man, and this was when I was, it was one of those things where it just, it was right. I remember being right after my knee surgery, because I remember on that same album, he had Go West, Young Man. So I went west. I went to Arizona, but I took it seriously. But, there is. I mean, there's a song that, I could tell you probably a couple songs that I could actually sit. I hear it, and I'm sitting in my grandfather's living room, and I can smell his pipe. I mean, it's, I don't know if you've ever, because he smoked a pipe back then, but you could actually smell the room sometimes. Have you ever had that feeling where you feel like you could?
Yep.
Over a song, And of course, songs can take you back anywhere, good, bad, happy, sad, It's the best part about doing
songs, especially, where you have lyrics and music together. It not only engages the mind, it engages the heart, engages the spirit. Yeah. And that's why, music in church is so important, is because it's something that ministers to the whole person. And there's a spiritual component to music.
Oh, 100%. Oh, 100%. My wife is my funny story about my wife and I is that, this is kind of funny, is that, so, when we first found Our Savior Lutheran, when we first found that in Nashville, I found a Lutheran faith, which was, to me, one of the biggest changes in my life, because we were raised Episcopalian, so not necessarily too far off.
Oh, they're pretty close.
Yeah, pretty close, right? But my wife would always find the churches that had, you would be at church and you would go in and it would be like a concert. The lighting, it would be the mega churches in Nashville, and it would be awesome. Music would be great. You were like a concert. It was fantastic, right? And then I was always the one that would say, it was about the message. I was always like, I wanted to feel what the pastor had to say. I wanted him to get me going for the week. And so we would always have these little things where it had to both be. So when you're church hopping, as they would say back in the day, right? I don't know if that's still a term, but
it's
still a term.
Yeah.
And it would be, we'd always have that component where it's like, oh, I love this music. I mean, Rebecca St. James, this comes out, and that's her home church, or the lead singer for Rascal Flatts. Because that's what happens in Nashville. The churches they go to, and I'm like, well, but I'm looking for that pastor, and then we found it. You find the whole thing, and we found that at our Savior Lutheran Church, and that's how we ended up at King of Glory here in Waynesburg when we moved here, was through a recommendation through one of our, it's. At the end of the day, so I kind of went on a little bit of a side story.
No,
but
that's good. That's good.
Yeah, but music at church, I mean, is, to me, I mean, it takes you to a whole different place.
Yeah,
it really does.
Yeah. So as you live out your faith through PorchLight, how do you see yourself loving and serving others? I mean, where do you see Jesus using you to be that blessing to others? So
I've already started it here in Williamsburg. I've been lucky to, it's funny how creative people find creative people very fast. And I've been lucky enough to meet folks in town that are doing amazing things with music. Shirley Vermillion, who does Second Sundays. I mean, with putting that on and giving a place for music to be out, to bring in artists and from all over and give folks a place to come see that on Sundays. And through that, and through some of these. Steve over at Spoken Art, and he does Culture Fix. He brings in these writers and this talent to these places, and it's given them a platform which turns around, and because I'm here in Williamsburg, allows me to come out and see them and think, man, some of these guys could really go to Nashville. Some of these guys could make a living doing songwriting. So whether it's being a mentor or kind of just advice, free advice to help, folks not go down to Nashville and waste their time, or go anywhere and waste their time. I mean, and that's just not here, but that's with anybody. There's a lot of things that some advice I can give that really help, folks go to Nashville, not spend too much money, understand what's going on down there.
Because you can really spin your wheels. I mean, same in going to L.A. trying to be an actor, or you can just spend your time, a lot of energy, but not make a lot of progress.
Right. It's true, and that's true. And I've met a lot of really good songwriters out here, and the only thing they didn't do was go. A lot of artists that just didn't. The biggest thing that I think I didn't realize you're also a motivation coach, but I think you probably realize that the biggest thing that really gets you is just starting, right? I mean, just going and doing it.
You got to jump out of the plane at some point if you want to parachute.
Jump out of the plane. Once you do, it's just like they say, you'll never go back.
Right.
Once you make that jump, and you realize that the worst things that can happen in life are really not that bad. They're just temporary. And and so, but you can't grow. You can't do the things you really want to do. I tell all my guys, all my writers that I meet, all my friends that are in this business, and things that when they ask, what if we go to Nashville and we're not that good as everybody else? Well, you probably 95% chance you're going to go to Nashville and not be as good as everybody, right? I mean, you're going to go to town. You might have been really big in your town. You're going to go down there and you're going to realize really fast, wow, he can write.
Yeah.
Wow, he can sing three different harmonies. He's a heck of a singer, but plays 5 instruments. It gets to be. But here's the thing: that's where you want to go, because just like athletics, right? There's a process. People come out there and they worry about what happens if they get out there and they're not as good. But the other thing about it is, well, when I get out there, man, I can be around all these great writers and these great players, and I can grow, and I can get better. And then, just like you would if you were a freshman on a football team in college.
Yeah.
How many freshmen go and they don't play their junior, senior year, but they're playing against the best, and then they get better.
Yeah.
And then there they are. They're a starter. That's the same deal. Most folks, I think, give up just a little too soon.
Yeah.
Tim, I'm sorry.
No, that's good. So one of the things we were talking actually before we got on the podcast, that you also kind of personally minister with people in some of the work that you do, that it's not just let's give you a platform, but there's also kind of the personal encouragement, prayer support that you offer. Do you have like a story about that?
Yeah. I got a really cool story. So I started PorchLight. One of the things you really realize when you're bringing on writers that do not have anything really going on, they're what we call baby writers. They come up and they haven't really had any true success, meaning cuts, or they're not on albums. I realized how hard it was to get into other writing camps. And so I knew in the back of my mind for years that, man, I've got to get a hit songwriter. Like, I've got to get a hit songwriter to come to my publishing company. Well, I'm in church one Sunday, and this is once again our Savior Lutheran Church in Nashville, where I kind of started. And obviously it's Sunday, and I'd been out a little bit the night before at a showcase, and I thought, man, I may have had one too many last night, and then I look over and I see somebody who looked like he had one too many more than I did for sure.
Long night.
long night. And joking with him, but he looked like a musician to me. He just had that look, there's a look, a natural look, and so, but he looked like it. So he's walking out of church, and I said, man, I walked up to him and said, man, you must be in the music business. And he goes, why do you say that? And I said, man, because you look pretty rough here at church, like you've been out last night. And he started busting out laughing. His name was Clint Daniels. And so that was it. Instant friendship, and come to find out, Clint had numerous number ones going back to Brooks and Dunn, Montgomery Gentry. His biggest one was with Joe Nichols called Broken Heartsville earlier on. I mean, he had an artist. The guy's amazingly talented. Nominated for a Grammy in 2019 for Eric Church's Some of It. So nominated for a Grammy, ACM, CMA, every other independent award you could get. It was he's the real deal. But he's also an amazing, he's amazing as far as just he's still to this day when he does a show, gives his praises to Jesus. I mean, it's for an environment these days where probably some people could feel uncomfortable. He probably goes on a 3 to 4 minute rant on Jesus up there with every song and every songwriter around he does, and how important Jesus was and is in his life. Yeah. And he wouldn't have had the success without it. Which, when he came over to PorchLight, just really that's what we probably talked. We talked about Jesus a lot because this is a tough game. Yeah. It's an area where there's only so many spots on radio. There's only so much.
I'm sure a lot of discouragement.
And folks, there's more than music too for writers and for all my artists. I mean, there's more than the music. Everybody's got something going on in their life. Everybody's got a story that's tough, or that they're going through. And I'm telling you, one day in Nashville, one day you're on the mountain, the next day you're not. The next day you're on the mountain, and it's a up and down, deal. Yeah. So we, in myself and my, my team, we spent a lot of time, like you said, ministry, comforting guys, and just kind of being there. But with Clint and I's relationship is special because we do talk about Jesus a lot. The way that we met, he's the only guy, probably one of the only hit songwriters I've ever met in church and not in the industry, which was crazy to me. That we were I'm sure our paths crossed many times, just never met. Yeah. So and then he went on to be hit. We got one on there at church right now, Soul, and just keep. He's great.
That's awesome. That's great. Well, it sounds like God's definitely using you in some ways, both in giving opportunities for people to live out their callings, their vocations, but also just that personal ministry as well.
Yeah.
So one of my hopes with this podcast is that we're reaching out to people and ministering with people who are wanting to live out their calling in Christ in their everyday life and to use that to be a blessing. And so hopefully we may have some young artists, some songwriters, some people thinking and getting in, because there's also the business side of the music industry. What advice would you give to somebody who's got a love and a passion for music, is thinking about this as possibly a career for them? What advice would you give to them?
The biggest thing is you got to get in the game, and you got to start by going to me. You got to go. I mean, now you're going to hear multiple you're going to hear people give you multiple opinions on this, because now with streaming and now with different things that you can do, you can do a record in your room. You can do all kinds of things and put stuff up. So, but I truly believe if you're going to really grow and do it, you got to go to New York if that's where your music is. L.A., Nashville. You got to go compete, and you got to go get better. And that's in any of it. That's where the industry. I mean, that's where labels are. That if you want to be in the if you want to work for a label, I just think you have to go be present in those communities, because, and you want to be there though. I mean, I'll give you an example. Like, if I would have told my friends where I'm from, hey, man, I'm going to go to Nashville and I'm going to be a country star, they're going to laugh at you. They're going to be like, yeah, go ahead and do that. We'll see you. Yeah, whatever. The chances of that happening, especially in school. You tell a teacher that, yeah, or everybody. You got to have a backup plan, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, as talented as you could be, that's what you're going to hear those things, right? But you need to surround yourself, just like we would with business, right? You got to surround yourself with people that are going to make you better and grow, right? And we do that in the business side of things too, like I do. I mean, I want to be around the producers, and I want to, the other, owners of publishing companies and labels, and that you want to be around guys that know this thing and make you better and make you grow. Same thing. I mean, that's not going to happen, as much online. Not to say everybody. There's a component that we'll never figure out, and that is whatever that it factor is.
Right. When lightning strikes.
And there's no. I don't think the formula after all these years has truly ever been figured out. But whether you get it on Idol, and whether you get on one of these shows, or whether you're a YouTube sensation, it's. We're not sure necessarily what fires that up, but I know this, that if you get into a community of folks that will support you, in Nashville, you can sit around and talk ideas with songwriting. You can talk about business. You can talk about ideas, and everybody's so encouraging. They love to hear it. It's an energy. It's an energy.
So being around like-minded people in environments in which also that sounds like the important aspect of who and the networking and the relationships.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's still all about relationships. I mean, and all it takes is you're out there, even if you don't have a publishing deal, right? But you're in town, and I just saw this happen, and you're not signed, but you happen to write a song with two other people, and that song becomes a number one. You have it. You got it all now. You got the publishing deal. I mean, it happens all the time, but it's not going to happen if you're not there. Because there is a part of it where I respect folks that have to leave town. I did twice. It's you feel like you kind of leave to grow a little bit. It doesn't have to be forever, but you leave and you grow, and I think that's important. It's because I think that's part of I feel like it shows how dedicated I am and how bad I want it.
Yeah.
That I'm going to go there to where and compete against the best.
Yeah. Well, I know for me when I was younger, I used to have this question of why me?
Yeah.
And I've started learning to ask a different question. Why not me? Now, at the end of the day, it's up to God whether it's a yes or a no, whether the door is open or closed. But you got to at least knock. You got to give it a shot. And if God wants that, he'll work and he'll move. If he's got different plans, he can always redirect you. It's kind of like that ship, you're never going to get anywhere if you don't leave dock and you put up your sails. And then at that point, it's up to God of where you end up.
Absolutely. I've told you, and I've had, believe me, I feel like I've told you about everything, God has done for me. But don't get me wrong now. There's been some things I prayed about that hasn't happened.
Yep.
But you're 100% right, and it's funny because, and I brought this Bible on because I got this Bible, and I actually had a chain with me, and I was going to bring it on here because both these two things, through all my journey, through Arizona, through Maryland, through Nashville, these are probably the only thing. This is probably the only thing that stayed with me. Mm. That's truly stayed with me. That hasn't been lost in a move. That got misplaced. I mean, this thing has and I don't forget that. You know what I mean? Like it's and you have to and that reminded me today. I'm not gonna lie, I was a little nervous coming on here.
By the way, this is your first podcast you've done. I want to thank you for honoring me to be on a first podcast.
No, Travis, thank you for having me. It's been something that I've been asked to do for a long time, and it was just something that I just hadn't done. And so when you said that, come on here and talk about the faith journey, I'm like, man, well, that's that makes it not just about the music. It's about what something that every day I get up and I'm thankful. to God that I get to create music, or that I get some of the experience, or help somebody else make something happen, or and so I appreciate you having me.
Yeah,
but I was a little nervous.
Well, you've done a fantastic job, and again, these are just conversations. And, I just love to be able to talk to people who have a faith in Christ and know His promises and love, and they're seeking to love and serve others in their callings of life. And it sounds like you're definitely doing that where God has placed you.
Well, and I'll continue for as long as He lets me, I guess. I once again, if I can help anybody in our community and in your community, let me know, because obviously, I want to help as many others as I can. Especially in this business.
Yeah. Well, to much who has been given, much or received, much is given, much is expected of us. And anyway, hey Tim, thank you so much, and we want to thank our listening and viewing audience for joining us as well. We hope that this was a blessing to you, and especially any of you young creatives out there. I just want to give you encouragement. I know that it can be very disappointing, but God has given you those gifts for a reason. Now, whether it's for something big or something small, He can use you to be a blessing. And I think some things that Tim talked about, getting together with like-minded people, not just musicians, but also people of faith, to be that encouragement, that support, accountability along the way, because there's a lot of pitfalls in the entertainment industry as well. And I think it's that journey together, and then seeing where God might use you. But find others who are like you, and don't give up on pursuing what God has placed in your heart. For anybody who is really been blessed by this podcast, we want to just encourage you not just to listen and view this, but like and share it with somebody, especially some people who are passionate about music. Maybe this might be a blessing to them. Make sure to pass it along to them. As always, we want to thank both the Southeastern District and Malem for their generous support to make this podcast possible. And with that, we want to wish you all God's richest blessings, and we'll catch you next time for the next Called2B podcast. Take care, everybody.